Hello everyone. In this lesson, I will share with you some points to note when using mobile phone photography for portrait shooting. In the previous lesson, we may have encountered some issues during the shooting process. So in this lesson, I will use a video to explain to you some points to note when using mobile phone photography for portrait shooting. Please watch the video. In landscape photography, the most important element is light and shadow. With light, there will inevitably be the presence of shadows, especially in high-altitude areas where the sky is blue and cloudy and the sunlight is strong. Whenever the light shines through, there will be shadows in areas where the clouds provide shade. This creates a beautiful contrast between brightness and darkness. The concept of light and shadow refers to the transition between brightness and darkness, as well as the contrast in terms of luminosity. In outdoor landscape photography, we should pay attention to the distribution of light and shadow in the frame and consider how to balance them. For this photo, we can see that this area is illuminated by the sun. If we crop the frame like this, let's take a look. It feels like the composition is incomplete, as if something is missing from the image. This dark area contrasts with the bright area. If we crop the dark area out, the bright area would appear ordinary, without much prominence. Where there is light, there must be shade to contrast with it. Therefore, in the process of taking photos, when selecting lighting, we'll first need to find a bright area, and then find a relatively dark area to create a contrast in terms of shape or size. Taking this photo as an example, this area is relatively dark, while the area over here is bright. This area is also dark. This creates a contrast, transitioning from shade to light and then to shade. With such a process, a perspective relationship is formed. It is like three pieces of paper, two black papers, for example, two black papers, another one, and a white paper. Turn it white. Okay, let's take a look at these three pieces of paper. If you stack these two black papers together, you will find that there is no perceptible variation in depth. Now, if you place a white paper on top, it feels like placing a white paper on a black paper because the two black papers are overlapping each other. Well, let's put the white paper in the middle and move this black paper onto the top layer. You will find that the white paper is between the black papers. This black paper is in the front, the white paper is in the middle, and the other black paper is in the back. This creates a foreground-background relationship, which signifies the existence of space, and perspective comes with space. When taking photos, we should also seek this kind of relationship. It is also acceptable if there is a transition from light to shade and then to light in the image. In the image, it is essential to have contrast, and at least two repeated light and shade relations are required. In this photo, this is a dark area, this is another dark area, and between them is a bright area. This involves perspective and the treatment of light and shade. This is something you need to understand when seeking landscapes and scenes outdoors. If you're having trouble finding suitable scenes, take a photo and convert it to black and white. By doing so, you can better assess the light and shade relations. It is evident that these two areas are darker than this one. The comparison will enable you to figure out the light and shade relations. It is the same for this photo. It is dark up there, bright in the middle, and dark again at the bottom, creating a shade-light-shade transition. You should know this concept. This type of photography is quite common in high-altitude regions. This photo is not of the conventional size, because there are some unrelated elements at the top, which also feature a brighter area. If we are to focus the visual center on this area, we need to crop up the upper part of the image. Therefore, the original square image has been transformed into a more elongated one. In the process of taking photos, it is crucial to pay attention to where the main subject of the image should be placed. For example, if this is the main subject, we can use the rule of thirds to position it near the visual focal point, which is over there. As long as the subject is placed near this area, our visual attention will be directed to it. The relationship between light and shade is something to be mindful of when shooting outdoors. Regarding the distribution of light and shade, as I mentioned earlier, they should not overlap. Blacks and blacks should not be placed together, and whites and whites should not be placed together. Instead, there should be an orderly arrangement from foreground, middle to background, or from top, middle to bottom, or from left, middle to right. Once this orderly arrangement is achieved, the resulting photograph will have an excellent sense of depth. You do not need to worry about the image appearing flat, having dual transitions, or lacking vibrant colors. Such situations will generally not happen. Having proper lighting can ensure better results in photography. When photographing outdoors, we should also follow the rule of thirds in composition. In addition to meeting the requirements for lines and depth, it is also important to meet the requirements for composition. Try to position the main subject as close as possible to any of the 4 visual focal points. For example, if there is a seagull here, it will create a visual correspondence with this area, these areas, and where we are going to place the objects. Therefore, when photographing outdoors, we should also follow the rule of thirds. This applies to the shape, the angle, and the like. This is the horizon. As there are mountains, we cannot see the horizon. We should try to position the mountains to either the upper or lower line, rather than placing them in the middle of the frame. If they are placed in the middle of the frame, the image will be divided into 2 equal halves, which is visually jarring. Therefore, when taking photos, it is important to ensure that the mountains align with either the upper or lower line rather than placing them in the middle. That is true for this photo too. That is true for all photos. In this photo, the mountains are also placed close to the upper line. This photo also contains various lines in this composition, and all these lines converge towards a specific point, creating a perspective relation. In general, when taking photos, perspective is one commonly used technique to convey a sense of space. This technique is most commonly when a wide-angle lens is employed. We all know how to use our phone camera lenses at the telephoto end to achieve a wide-angle effect. You can simply adjust the zoom to around 0.6 times or 0.5 times, and it will switch to the wide-angle mode. The wide-angle perspective allows for a wider field of view and can enhance the visual effect of the image. This photo was taken using a semi-telephoto lens. Similarly, the horizon line is about located here, and the middle portion will not include a horizon line. In this way, the composition will have a sense of depth with the elements arranged in the upper, middle, and the lower parts of the frame. Therefore, in the photography process, including the selection of senses and post-processing, it is important to adhere to this concept and principle. Next, I'll talk about the contrast of sizes. In the image, there may be similar elements. For example, these are animals. This is also an animal. This is a horse, and there are yaks behind. Well, in such cases, it is beneficial to have a contrast in size to create a sense of space. If the image is like this, that's fine too, but there is less contrast and sense of space. It feels that these animals are far away and irrelevant. But with this horse, you will find that this is a grassland which is vast and open. When you have a horse in the foreground and yaks in the distance, this immediately creates a sense of space with the contrast in size. A photo like this is generally shot from a higher place rather than at eye level. If I stand at a similar height as the horse and shoot from that position, most of the yaks will be obstructed by the trees, making it difficult to capture them in the frame. Therefore, it is necessary from my perspective to be slightly higher in order to capture such a scene. Therefore, when selecting a scene, we should pay attention to the height at which we position our phone camera. In some situations, in order to convey a sense of space, we should position the camera higher or using aerial photography. One advantage of mobile phone photography is that its screen is always visible. Even if you hold the device above your head, you can still see the screen and capture the shot by simply pressing the shutter button. Even if you place your phone on the ground, you can still see your screen. That is very convenient. Well, these are the tips to be noted when we are taking photos. When taking photos outdoors, there are indeed certain rules that can be followed. In this lesson, I will primarily discuss the rules to consider during the process of outdoor photography. The first rule is to find lines. Taking this photo as an example, it captures a staircase. From our point of view, this staircase forms an S-shaped curve, presenting excellent extensibility. This staircase is wider in the foreground and becomes narrower in the distance. In fact, its width remains consistent throughout. It appears larger in the foreground because it is closer to the camera, which is known as foreshortening. Such a composition gives us a feeling of extension and a strong sense of perspective. When taking outdoor photographs, we need to search for such lines. Indeed, such lines are not difficult to find. Locations like subway station stairs, train station stairs, and many parks often offer such lines, which create a sense of extension. Another type of line to consider is straight lines. Such lines can be quite purposeful in the composition. For example, this is a diagonal line. It will give you a very subjective understanding that there is a very obvious line here that you cannot overlook. There are also converging lines, where all the lines converge towards a single point. This occurs because we are using a relatively short focal length. When taking photos, using a slightly shorter focal length can accentuate the perspective effect, where objects appear larger in the foreground and smaller in the distance. When capturing such scenes, it is easy to find suitable environments. You can look for a clean street with houses, arranged tidily and neatly. As long as the alley is deep enough, you can achieve the desired effect in your photographs. A photo like this offers a sense of regularity and lengthiness. This approach is very commonly used when taking outdoor photographs. There are also lines like these, zigzags. This approach is suitable for flat surfaces, where you can capture the scene by shooting straight on. In such cases, there is minimal perspective, but these zigzags are very interesting. This one, too. Such lines, this is the line of the machine itself. Well, as long as these lines are present, paired with a pure white or clean background, the composition will appear very simple and clean. This is a very ingenious composition technique. Okay, apart from lines, there are many other things to consider, such as shapes. This is a shape. The shape in the second photo is obvious. This is a triangle. When a triangle appears in the frame, it gives a sense of stability and regularity. In addition to triangles, there are circles and many other shapes. If such shapes appear in the frame, simply press the shutter button to capture the photo. For example, these are triangles. And this is also a triangle. Different triangles overlapping each other can create a visually striking composition. These are the shapes and lines that we should find in the frame. Let's wrap up this lesson on mobile phone photography. Thanks for watching.